who do you like for the presidential primary here in South Carolina?
I think Donald Trump.
He sounds good.
Who's that?
Trump.
Where do you get most of your news?
You can't get it in the media because they're part of the problem.
So where do you get it?
From my neighbor. He gets it off the computer.
Donald Trump continues to dupe people into thinking he's running for president. Last night on Fox News, conservative columnist Charles Krauthammer was the latest to fall for Trump's act.
He called me, and, I was prepared for, a gale of abuse because I've been really tough on him, and he would have been within his rights to do it. Actually, he was rather gracious and courteous, and he wanted to talk about his candidacy. He wanted to make me see, in his view, how he was a serious candidate, a serious man. So I give him credit for graciousness and restraint, but it convinced me that he's running, and this is not just a feint.
Geez, I wonder why I haven't gotten a call from the Vulgarian-in-Chief trying to convince me he's running. Here is what Charles Krauthammer does not understand about Donald Trump. Trump cannot afford to run for president. And there are three important and independent ways in which Trump cannot afford to run for president. First, he simply doesn't have enough money for a presidential campaign. It would cost Trump a few $100 million to run a viable presidential campaign. He doesn't have that kind of money, and he has never, ever, ever had that kind of money. Second, he cannot afford to lose his paycheck as a paid cast member in an NBC entertainment show. Now, if you think Trump is a billionaire and doesn't need the few million he makes from his TV show, ask yourself why no other billionaire is in the cast of an NBC TV show or in the cast of any TV show anywhere. Third, Trump's fragile ego cannot afford to lose a presidential campaign. I would love to see him actually become a candidate for president because he would quickly become the campaign's biggest loser. But he doesn't have the courage to take that risk, because it isn't really a risk. It's a definite outcome. He would be the campaign's biggest loser. So he will deny me the pleasure of watching him get humiliated on a campaign debate stage and trounced at the ballot box. But Trump actually tied for first place in yet another poll out today. When Gallup pollsters asked Republicans and GOP-leaning independents who they would support for the 2012 nomination, 16% of them failed the intelligence test and said Donald Trump. Another 16% said Mike Huckabee, 13% were for Mitt Romney, 10% chose Sarah Palin, and Tim Pawlenty, the dark horse who will surge once it is clear that Trump, Huckabee, and Palin are not in the race, polled at only 3%. Joining me now, MSNBC contributor Melissa Harris Perry, an associate professor of politics at Princeton. Thanks for joining us tonight, Melissa.
Absolutely. Although we need something new to talk about, Lawrence.
We've got plenty to talk about. We're going to take this a little bit broader this time.
Yeah.
On ABC, actually, this week, their weekend program just released a clip of the evangelical leader, Franklin Graham, Reverend Franklin Graham, giving his thoughts about Trump. Let's listen to that.
Donald Trump, when I first saw that he was getting in, I thought, well, this has got to be a joke. But the more you listen to him, the more you say to yourself, maybe the guy's right. So
he might be your candidate of choice.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Melissa, my theory about how he's pulling off that trick and pulling in socialist conservatives is his lies about the president's birth certificate. He knows he's got a problem with abortion. He used to be for it before he's now against it, changed his mind very recently. He knows he has a problem on that side of the polls. And so once he goes very strong in his attack on the birth certificate, he thinks that's going to take care of all the issues that those people care about. And it does seem to have helped him with those people.
Oh, absolutely. So, I think we take a deep breath, first of all, right? Those polls are distressing, that we see Donald Trump, in that position, a first or second place position with GOP likely voters. But let's remember that at this point, that's really just name recognition, right? When he wasn't in the list being read to people, fewer than 1% of those same kinds of voters offered Donald Trump's name as a possibility. It's not until they hear his name that they say, oh, well, maybe. And although you and I and your viewers spend a lot of time, thinking about politics, the fact is ordinary Americans at this point in the presidential, cycle aren't thinking that much about it. But I think your point here that even folks who are the intermediaries, the ones who are now going to signal who are the real candidates so that Americans can start paying attention to the right folks, to the extent that they start picking up Trump as a possible candidate, as a likely candidate, as a real candidate, that's when we need to start, getting worried about how he's using this clearly race-based language around the birth certificate to build this very odd coalition.
Does the polling results indicate to you that there is something there in the Republican respondents? There is a longing for some kind of message, including a message of hate about the President of the United States, because the Trump message that I'm hearing is one of pure hatred of the President.
Maybe, right? So, but I'm an optimist. So here's the other thing I see in those polling results. 15% of these, same persons who are polled say they have no opinion at all on any of these folks. And Trump is coming in highest among the moderates, right? So when I see Trump coming in highest among the moderates and the kind of medium medium Republicans, that says to me that what they're actually looking for is somebody who is not quite as far right as the GOP has been offering themselves. And right now, Trump is just a name. He's just sort of a possibility out there. And there's 15% who are still saying there's nobody on this list that seems to make sense to us. If you are a good, smart, middle-of-the-road Republican, this is the moment to jump in the race. Your big challenger at this moment is Donald Trump.
And is Trump, in effect, shielding the Palentis and the Romneys from what would be the media scrutiny that they might start to get at this time? And is it actually helpful to them because it lets them operate quietly on the fundraising front and get their campaigns in gear quietly?
It does. And I think also we have to be careful not to forget to talk about the real candidates. I think we shouldn't be writing Huckabee off yet. I think Huckabee is a very dangerous challenger to the Obama presidency in a lot of ways. So if you are in the DNC and you're thinking about who you might be facing, look, you in certain ways would rather face a Mitt Romney whose own record supports a health care plan very similar to the president's national health care reform push. Then you want to face, somebody like Huckabee, who's personable and Southern and, has this whole sort of way of sounding terribly reasonable, even when he's saying things that are not terribly reasonable. So we as media should also be really careful not to miss the potentially more dangerous real candidates.
MSNBC contributor and associate professor of politics at Princeton, Melissa Harris Perry. Thanks for joining us tonight, Melissa.
Thanks.